We're most fortunate to have with us Dr. K.S. Karanth. Who does not know about him? For 9 decades of his life, and I belong to a generation of Indians who has admired your work in several fields. And over these decades, I have watched the writer, the exponent of the Yakshagan, the social activist, the anthropologist, the writer of children's plays, and above all, a person who can draw hundreds and thousands of young people magnetically to him, because the soul speaks with sincerity through his voice. When you entered the scene, both of life and of literature and the arts, what did you see? And how do you see that scene today?
Comparing the past and the present,
Yes.
probably I have grown too speedily for the bizarre life that we see round about. When I began life, there were enough ignorant people, a noble idea of freedom, and so many things. When probably Gandhiji stood for lack of freedom, we have been like this. We want our freedom. I also joined. But as you got into life, when I had to speak to people, what he wanted to convey, I tried my best. Take the charka and turn it on, earn 1.5 annas a day. Nobody was prepared. I manufactured khadi cloth, carried it, and wanted to sell khadi at 1 rupee 4 annas for 36 inches. When grey cloth from Japan was selling for 6 annas, then I said, economics, when it is linked with the world, can't be a part of your own, you can't dictate. Similarly, it is not so in other areas, whereas our knowledge, our emotional impacts were an old stories, old examples, pictured in what they considered as old artistic ways, was different. When we began to compare the same with the world about, I talk this because whatever I did, I began to see what other people are doing. How is the theatre in Japan? How is it in Russia? How is it in roundabout gone and seeing? Why? So when all these things come, first of all, I wanted to analyze and understand the arts about me. So far as the novels are concerned, I read Bankim Chandra, and in my 4th form, I wrote a pedantic language, Yogini, where the sunsets, we say, Hotkantito, Hotto is Surya, Bhagavan Bhaskar Ji ne, etc., etc. This was very fantastic. That word and putting one's own emotions in one's own mouth, these are two separate things.
But your whole movement was a movement of national identity, of the search of an Indian identity. In the pre-freedom movement.
It was the identity is all right. What was my part is what I say. When I began to give a lecture on khadi or untouchability, go about the villages, ask them to come and sit down. My host and I am there. There is one man there to listen to me. Then I felt, Gandhiji, when he came to Bangalore, there were 20,000 people. Karanth to do and address will not have half a dozen people. So naturally, I will start a newspaper so that people will read. Because I say, I become we. We mean. When I began to write, how much do I know? This question comes in when you pose a question based on somebody else. It's the economic question. I read poverty and un-British rule in India.
Yes.
Average income of an American 1,500, Japan 300, India 30. Why? Why poverty? How can you erase it? By spinning and earning 2.5 annas a day. You are linked with somebody else. Putting a zeal is there to going to solve the problems of poverty, and all these things are there. And in the process of these things, I got fancy for music, because that was a part of my life. When I was a high school student, there were commercial theatres coming there. And Sampurna Ramayana, Prahlad Charitra were there. So many fanciful things there. And was the first drama I saw as a child carried on my neck to the Yakshagana theatre early morning. There coming, I saw Chandi coming and killing somebody else. This picture haunted me throughout. So that had an impression. And as soon as I thought of the drama, I want to delve. What can prose do? In Ekas Pyala, somebody drinks, and before he commits suicide, he gives 50 pages or one of sermons. This is totally unreal. So, a drama came into me, music came into me, history came into me. And as I began to write, I wanted to learn. Till I learned, I could say anything till it must be mine. My reading will not be mine till I understand those things. So in the process, there were two things left to me. One, to discover knowledge and pass it on to somebody else. That I have been doing. The function of language, carrying science and every blessed subject in your own language to the people, so that they know where the world is. The other is the emotional life and the artistic life and idea and all these things. There also, I was there reading Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, translating his whole book, and then going for tapas, sitting down. And when I began to imagine the Rama and Krishna that came to me was Ravi Verma's painting, or Krishna or somebody of the theatre. Then I said, you manufacture your own gods based upon inherited conception. God you can't conceive, and you want to put it in your hand and have the God in your hand. He is too vast. So this Adhika Prasanga, I may call, I gave it up. Then what can you do? What has been given? I had to choose between two things. One, convey knowledge by reading, writing on science and every blessed subject.
Which you've done a tremendous amount.
That is the best thing that I
because your contribution to the encyclopedia, Kannada Encyclopedia of Science.
In 30, I wrote Children's Encyclopedia. In 62, Popular Science Encyclopedia. In 83, World Arts, dabbling in everything. Because nothing has been done, not I know too much. That question is different. Because I have been seeing, reading those things, my work is so little. Because great people have come, done immense. But what are you giving to your people? This question I have to pose. And this I have done to do.
But the award-winning, Gyanpith award-winning work that in that you explore other problems also.
It does do that.
It does do that. Now tell me, how were you drawn to Yakshagan?
Yakshagan, I said as a child I listened. Then the theatre influenced me, Ratnavali theatre and other theatre, Prahlad Charitra,
But at that time there was this Parsi theatre, little bit, not so much in Kannada, and there were all these melas.
Bombay theatre, the only thing I saw, Gadkari and all that.
Right.
Gadkari was the sentiment of drinking evil. I went home and got it translated and staged it in 1920.
20, oh Lord. Huh?
And then in the process, the appeal of the drama and what it is, sentimental stuff or non-sentimental, ideal stuff and imaginary stuff, these things I had to do. And then when I did, there is the theatre. There is the Yakshana theatre itself. I gave extempore prose. I put on the cloak of a fantasy of a god which I have not seen or somebody has painted.
Not Ravi Verma's god.
Not Ravi Verma's god. So this is a fantasy. You create things. When you know, it is not real, but it is only imaginary. And then how do you communicate? Prose, music, dance. What can music by itself do? By itself, I have not tried it all. I have not taken a violin or anything, played. Unless most of our songs are linked with the song of a Tulsidas or somebody else and played. There, when I began to, I knew that I carried Arnold Bhatia all through Karnataka to take down the musical forms, give him the meaning, and when I began to gather and tell him what it is, music, when it is in a song, it has to depict the emotion, not the capacity, technical capacity, raga and sanchara and all the tabla boards and this.
But in the traditional Yakshagan Mela like that, and which I have seen thanks to you, you remember my trip to Karnataka, 3 prasangas are going on at the same time, almost simultaneously. They are also dealing with epic themes. They were also dealing with a dramatic style. And when you entered this scene, how did you think that you wanted to absorb that and also give it a new form?
I was creating dramas for children, having Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, Shubha Tatta and the other things. At the same time, I am using Hindustani and other music. What that child can be appealed. For elders, when they give a Ramayana theme, I couldn't copy their dress or these things. In the shortest possible, I will have to write Panchavati or some other thing. I used music and the musical content for displacing their emotions, where it is not vocalized extempore temple, today one thing, tomorrow another thing, today pathetic thing for 1 hour lecture. Strictly to the song, how do you depict it in terms of emotion? It is linked with footwork. Should you look at my leg? Should I use the ear alone? Then why do you want the thala? The whole thing is the art is, music is killed by the himmela. He begins to beat, and the clap comes when the highest speed is there. Abhimanyu has fallen on the ground, clap. Totally diverse thing. The moment you may take technique as art and glorify yourself, you forget why you are carrying these things. In Yakshagana, the song carries a definite meaning of a definite role and a definite emotion.
And the actors used to sing and do the vachana, and in your plays you don't do that.
These also sing. When Gandharva sings, he sings Kiti Sangatula, Kiti Sangatula, Kiti Sangatula, half an hour Kiti Sangatula. I go to Grant Road, drink coffee and come. There Master Krishna used these Hindustani tunes, selected them proper tunes. They were first man. In our place they imitated the same pattern, sang it for all these things. But when you take our own music or their own music, even in Karnataki, the folk songs contain beautiful songs without being called by the name of the raga. The emotional contents are displayed. I had a teacher who began to teach me some Hindustani songs and all that. I would ask him, what is the meaning of the song? All right, is Koyaliya Kunka Sunave. Illi, I hear the kakus thing. Sakeri Maito Biraha Satave. It evokes. Then the content is different. It is not for raga and tala. It is for displaying the emotions there. Then when I find more than our Dasa Sabhas, Purandar Das said, challenge us God, you don't give me your vision. Why do I have your name with me? Ninyako, Nina Hangyako, what do I care? I have your name in it. It is such a thought in the devotion that was the cause of all Tulsidas or anything. Kodara Jagamai, who's so great? Jagamai, Jaga is not cramped. Jagamahi. Why? Second, the first line is the post question. Binu seva jo dravai dinapara Rama sarisa ko nahi Kodar Jagamahi Jogati yoga virag Jatana kari Swagati dini Gita shabari ko Kodar Jagamahi. When I saw the potentiality, music linking with the words, it is very great.
So that you were taking the word and the sahitya and its
It is
emotion.
for the sake of the sahitya. Sahitya came because of the feeling, the emotional urge in the language of the person. And he expresses. They go together. And the advantage is, prose can depict a situation, it can't create.
Right.
It can tell me what language.
The song has the emotive passion and
but it can't be described in words. So naturally, what can music is very first verse, the very first sentence. There is Nala, forsakes Damayanti, goes to the forest, leaves her there. How do I throw her back? Hege I adaviyali hege. The very word hege. I adaviyali in this forest. Urvala bittu, leaving her alone. Na myself. Mundadi idali. So at this stage, I using Hindustani, I first of all was musical place. That of Kisagotme losing the child, Lavakusha, Rama sending, punishing the wife there and sending, and the burden of carrying there and leaving her in Valmiki, that's quite an entire life of Buddha. And these things, I worked these things. I thought music in such instance where the deep emotion is seen, that is the best vehicle. When you want to understand, explain in terms of what the psychological thing, where takes time, language can do. Tala and all these things, pure joy or these things, they can't speak for anything. Rhythm for its own. When you say, want to show it, you play, I will hear to you. But not in a situation which has nothing to do with anything. I am very sorry. Thaitakatai, 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 kick the floor. Is it Shangara? For me, these are the questions I had to answer.
Right.
People admire clever work. I do understand. They, you see, Sathi, he leaves the man and beats on, so on, and people look at him and you enjoy. In Yakshagana, I chose because they were written in song form. Nearly about 60 ragas had been used. 130 mentioned, I have said.
Your earliest manuscripts come from the 16th century or earlier on Yakshagana?
1620, first manuscript. I collected only because I wanted to give history. There, from that period, it was called Yakkalagana and so on. They had
and the Andhra tradition is a separate later tradition, and what we find in the Saraswati Library much later. So
there
from the 16th century you begin to get this.
But there too what became is your footwork and all these things, this we can't, not the thought content of the Yakshagana things or these things. That way, Yakshagana from various books, there are nearly 100, few of them very potentially musically rich. Because in a drama, it is jibe, it is anger, it is joy and everything. All those simple songs I began to enjoy.
Is there notation given in those books?
No, raga and tala.
Only raga. But how do you know what the raga was? Because this is a reconstruction thing.
The pattern may be totally different.
Pattern
what I did was to mark out these songs which our Bhagavats know. There were 5 or 6 Bhagavats. So they played what is the song. Have them. I had 2 friends, one to Hindustani, one is violinist. My knowledge of mine is too superficial. Then this is the raga, this is the tala. There. I could find 150 ragas have been mentioned writing in this raga and tala, this prasanga, this song is sung. Now they remember about 20 or 30. So I got to the survival of ragas there, I could get. Then with the help of films, then I could trace a few things. When I wanted to play them out again, I wanted to fix up the raga tala as was noted. And then take up people, because you can't in a dance repeat it 100 times. And another thing is, our Yakshagana is sung at the topmost, Gandharva, Gandharaswara, and you shriek to an open audience.
Tisra Saptak in the third octave.
So naturally, I take a few songs, I take the help of his art, luckily to get up first-rate musicians, violins to play. With this, I began. What instrument suits, what voice suits, what can prose do. These things, each element that goes to the formation of musical or theatrical art, I had to analyze and then present them, make an experiment, see whether C is all right, see that you can do it, and these things had been gone. Later on, when I took to this, I was not satisfied with ordinary things. What can shadow do? Where there is no body dress, the whole thing like a gomata, having a curtain, stand, pose, then no body, the entire body language, the language of sculpture. Come near the light, go back near this eyes, it is posed. I saw a fantasy drama by Lord Dunsany for the first time. Fantasy can be used wonderfully. In about 35, I wrote a shadow play as a symbolical allegory, rich man seeking, sucking the blood of it in literal words. The conception is man and woman. Oh, you lady, you are very great, and all that flattery. It makes accept the girl in companionship. After marriage, you didn't cook, you didn't do, you didn't worship me. Then the woman gets revolted. There were 3 such women, a farmer's wife, a poet said. One stand behind the other, spread 6 legs. They became the Kali-like farmer. So this symbolical thing, some 3 plays I wrote that way. Here, the manner of depiction is difficult. The instruments are difficult. The body line is difficult. When it comes to dance, the whole thing organized here. Jingles up to here. But your carrying weight capacity is very good if you have more jingles. But does that now noise contribute to the theme that is depicted there? For half an hour. Beautiful Bijir Maharaj sings the beautiful voice art by the thaita katai, kick the floor and challenge the Somehow this is travesty of arts. Earlier people also began to show alankarams. Unneeded alankars are depicting all types of imaginary things. That cleverness is rather in art, takes you away. Otherwise, in our own things, you have got so many things left poignant shown. In simple way, they have shown what can be done. This was the thing that led me to take up finally to Yakshagana alone, take the things that I know, because people have to be told this is somebody and all that. Here they have heard about it. The songs and the tales still remember. Today they have forgotten all these things. Nobody plays any of these. All cinematic things. And music is all 2 words there. That is the latest form. Somehow when you see the degeneration or whatever it be. But you play your part and you are not going to reform the world or anything.
How in your operas you contain the emotion in the words and then through the melodic form?
Most of these operas are tragic forms. Not that I have not tried anything else. I said you can still live. Badukka bahut. Somebody says, life charm is lot. The last 60th Kshaya is come. So the world will vanish.
Why did tragedy attract you?
Huh?
Why did tragedy attract you?
No, joyous things are also fun and frolic. I have done enough. Life itself is being played with. Why do you? Oh, you are forced to think of it. Ek din jana re bhai.
Ek din jana re bhai.
So, you have to be conscious to be a sober life.
Any great art, the artist must transcend his own ego.
It has not only, he must be thoroughly unconscious, merged in the theme that he depicts.
Yes. He has
He
to
is
have
there.
that negative capability of being that and not being himself.
Being himself means the audience, the clap.
Yes.
Hunting. And
But which is
you
ego,
want to be praised for that.
for the technique, for the virtuosity,
We have confused technique with these things.
and that is not art.
It can be art of the goldsmith.
Art of the goldsmith. Very good.
The
Now,
Hoysala temple, all gods are meant to carry loads of embroidery.
embroidery, and that is why.
You see where they are dropped. Mere things in the earliest, some of these things, simple lines convey what it is.
This is what, in a way, Heber has done to this beautiful book that we have.
Yes.
He is
every
given some
aspect.
lines here. Now you have written
There
so
are lines
much.
in the simplest thing, but the most effective convection
So
of
that's-
what a line can do, how you should send. It is not a display how you are beautiful. After the drama, the actor should be carried home.
Right.
If the whole motive is not worship of art or communication through the medium or which we have spent our life. If pedantry is everything.
One of the things is that today people are not understanding the inner message of our own mythology and these great epic stories, and it is becoming something which is a bit of a distortion. Would you agree?
There is nothing special. Where there is no intellectual or emotional word in an animal, what they do? They breathe their last, whether what they felt or joyous or anything, we don't know. We also breathe our last, great and small, they die. But what a type of life it is, what beauty it is, what peace is, to find that element, you have to place value for such things. Here the volume is too much, the speed is much more. We had Yakshagana till, or our drama, from 1600 to 300 years. That is, the audience also is trained by seeing them. Today, so many new places there, I will have seen 500 places. What can get into the head? The quantity is too much. No appetite is developed. No instinct is stressed. So that way, it is mass.
Yes, but this mass means that, as you gave a very good example, that in Japan they have their kabuki, they have their no, and that is being preserved, like, to use your image, like gold, and then there are the other plastic things. Here we seem to be adulterating the gold itself.
We have taken the thing from them. Suppose you want to steal gold from a thing and replace it so that it's not found out.
So then we are doing that.
That means cleverness to survive.
So that you're
to survive.
losing the gold which you can at least keep in the locker. Here you have adulterated the gold itself, so that you can have no real gold.
We have not learnt the value of gold when gold was the standard of currency.
Yes, we have not learnt that.
Yes.
As much as we have not learnt the value of keeping the, I'll take another image, of keeping the gomukh from which the Ganga emerges pure. Because if we adulterate the source from which the Ganga comes.
If the source itself is contaminated with people hiding and throwing off all
Yes. So, isn't that what we are doing to our traditions?
When a tradition people have multiplied without taste or tasting thing, what is left to preserve? You play a play. Will anybody come to see a play about old time? So to suit them you change. How many times have I to see Ramayana and Mahabharata? You begin to write stories, Arabianites. Even that is over. Today all prasangas, old prasangas, never played at all. It is the end of the epoch.
But Dr. Karanth, we need hope. We still need hope from people like you.
This we consists of how many millions?
Right, a minority undoubtedly.
Then it's all right. Be content.
Thank you.